30 years. That's how long I gave them. 3 decades of showing up early, staying late, missing birthdays, anniversaries, even my own father's funeral, because a major rollout was on the line. 30 years of biting my tongue, of watching trends come and go, of letting hotshots rise and fall while I quietly kept the engine running. I didn't expect a gold watch. Hell, I didn't even expect a thank you card. But I'll tell you what I didn't see coming. A handshake and a smile from a woman half my age, telling me I no longer fit the culture. My name's Jack Foster. I'm 58 years old, or was, back when this all started. For the past 3 decades, I was senior systems manager at Virion Solutions, a mid-sized tech company that started out scrappy and honest, back when we still fixed things with our hands and signed deals over lunch instead of on Slack threads filled with emojis. I wasn't flashy, never had to be. My work spoke loud enough. I still remember the smell of the conference room that afternoon, citrus disinfectant and stale coffee. Monica had sent the calendar invite just an hour before. Subject line: quick catch-up. I thought maybe it was about budget approvals or staff training, something routine. Instead, I walked into a room where the air was already thick with decisions made without me. Monica sat at the head of the table, legs crossed, her laptop open but untouched. She wore a crisp blazer and a smile so polished it could have been synthetic. She gestured toward the seat across from her, like I was a guest at my own funeral. "Jack," she said, her voice syrupy but rehearsed. "Thank you for coming on such short notice." I nodded, still standing. "What's going on?" She inhaled deeply, like she was about to deliver an Oscar-winning monologue. "This isn't easy, but after reviewing recent strategic goals and evaluating our evolving company culture, we've decided your role is no longer aligned with Virion's direction." I blinked. "I'm sorry. What?" "You've done incredible work here," she said quickly, as if preloaded with compliments. "But the energy we're cultivating now, it's just different, more dynamic, more in tune with digital storytelling, brand ambassadorship, and audience engagement." I stared at her. "I'm a systems engineer. I don't engage audiences. I keep the servers from crashing during peak load." "And you've been phenomenal at that," she said, placing a hand over her heart. "But the culture is evolving, and honestly, we're looking for voices that reflect our new direction." Voices, not skills, not experience. Voices. I felt something tighten in my jaw, but I said nothing. Just sat there while she delivered the rest of her pitch like a breakup speech. "We'll offer a generous severance, of course. You'll have health care through the end of the quarter, and if you'd like, I'm happy to write you a letter of recommendation." A letter of recommendation? From a woman who'd been with the company for 6 months. I'd been here longer than the floor tiles. "And who's taking over my department?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. She hesitated for half a second. "Skylar Thompson." The name sat in the air like spoiled fruit. I'd seen Skylar around, always on her phone, filming herself in the cafeteria, balancing on one foot in the break room while reciting productivity hacks to her camera. I once caught her recording a dance video in the server room. She'd used the blinking network lights as a cool backdrop. She'd been with us for barely a year, most of it as an intern. Now she was in charge of infrastructure. "She has a really unique way of connecting with audiences," Monica added, clearly sensing my silence. "That's what our brand needs now. Relatability." I don't know what hit me harder, the audacity or the absurdity. I wasn't just being fired. I was being replaced with someone who wore company merch ironically and thought data redundancy was a kind of smoothie. But I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I stood up, buttoned my jacket, and reached out my hand. "Thank you," I said. Her eyes flickered, surprised. Maybe she expected a scene. Maybe she wanted one. But I wasn't giving her that satisfaction. "You've handled this with such grace," she said, already relieved the hard part was over. "Really?" I left the room and walked past the row of desks I'd watched fill and empty for decades. Past the break room where Skylar was probably editing a TikTok caption. Past the server door I used to badge into at 6 a.m. every Monday like clockwork. No one looked up. No one said goodbye. I stepped into the elevator, alone. The doors closed slowly, as if even the building couldn't believe it. And as I stood there, hands at my sides, I realized something. This wasn't my failure. It was theirs. They'd confused relevance with noise, depth with flash. They didn't want legacy. They wanted likes. So I smiled, and I started planning. The first morning after I left Virion, I sat in my kitchen longer than I ever had in 30 years. The coffee was quiet. No Teams pings, no daily stand-up, no sprint review prep, just silence and the soft click of the thermostat. I kept expecting my body to go through the motions anyway. Grab the laptop, check server loads, reply to requests I shouldn't even be fielding. But none came. My name had already been scrubbed from the system. I was, in every official sense, gone. And yet, I didn't feel lost. I felt alert. The betrayal didn't sting the way I thought it would. Maybe because it was so absurd, so fundamentally disconnected from everything I knew about work and loyalty and merit. Or maybe because, for the first time in 3 decades, I wasn't too busy to see the bigger picture. Virion had moved on, but that didn't mean I had to disappear. I started with my old contacts. Quiet messages. No bitterness, just, "Hope you're well. Let's catch up." Some responded with cautious warmth. Others replied like they'd been waiting for the excuse. My first meetup was with Darren, a former team lead who'd been let go last year under vague realignment language. We met at a corner cafe near his place, neutral ground. He ordered a flat white. I stuck with black coffee. "You too, huh?" he said, before I'd even taken a sip. I nodded. Cultural mismatch. He laughed, but it wasn't bitter, just tired. They told me the same thing, said I wasn't collaborative enough, after 15 years of managing cross-departmental launches. We talked for an hour, then 2. He knew of 3 others who'd been pushed out under the same kind of language, all seasoned, all quiet performers, all replaced by louder, younger faces who got the vibe. Later that afternoon, I received an invite to a Slack workspace titled Echo Chamber Survivors. It came from a woman named Tanya, used to run compliance. We'd spoken maybe twice in my career. I joined out of curiosity. Inside were over 50 former Virion employees. The chat threads were illuminating. Stories poured in, not just layoffs, but restructures, reassignments, promotions denied without explanation. One guy had been given a performance improvement plan after questioning the ROI of a company podcast. Another had his role dissolved after asking why Skylar was filming product demos without NDAs. These weren't isolated incidents. They were patterns. The next day, I met up with someone I never thought I'd see outside office walls, Linda from HR. She'd always seemed stiff, by the book. But now, out of uniform and out of contract, she looked freer. Her guard was down. We met at a small cafe tucked beside a used bookstore. She wore oversized sunglasses and kept glancing at the door, as if expecting a camera crew. "I shouldn't be talking to you," she said, stirring her tea. "But I'm glad you reached out." "I'm not looking to blow anything up," I said. "Just trying to understand." She sighed. "They'd been planning it for months. You weren't the first target, just the last one who could actually see through the fluff." I leaned in. "How far up does it go?" She hesitated. Skylar's hiring was pushed through without standard review. No background check, no department vote. Her contract was signed before your termination paperwork was even drafted. I felt my stomach tighten. And Monica? I asked. She authored a document internally, called it a culture manifesto. It's been floating around Slack for weeks. No formal release, just shared between execs and key influencers. I saw it before I left. What's in it? Linda opened her bag and slid me a folded printout. I unfolded it slowly. It looked like a branding deck. Bright colors, buzzwords. But beneath the corporate glitter were lines that made my jaw tighten. Prioritize energetic, socially fluent talent over legacy operators. Disengage from institutional knowledge that doesn't scale visually. Promote youth-centric narratives to align with Gen Z audience base. Disengage from institutional knowledge. That was me. That was everyone in that Slack group. Linda watched my face. They're not dumb, just arrogant. They think no one's watching. I folded the document and tucked it into my coat. What happens next? She gave a small, sad smile. Depends on you. That night, back home, I sat at my desk, not out of habit, but purpose. I pulled up a fresh notebook and started outlining what I knew. Names, timelines, hiring overlaps, digital footprints, Slack leaks, LinkedIn activity. This wasn't about revenge. Not yet. It was about clarity, control. After 30 years of being loyal to a machine that discarded me like a used part, I finally had the space to trace its flaws. And here's what I realized. Just because they couldn't see me anymore didn't mean I wasn't connected. In fact, I was more connected than ever. They cut me out thinking I'd vanish. They never imagined I'd get louder, smarter, or that I'd start pulling threads. I didn't scream. I didn't threaten lawsuits or storm the building with a camera crew. That's not my style. I've always believed you learn more from silence than shouting. So I stayed quiet. For now. But quiet doesn't mean passive. The day after Linda handed me that manifesto, I spent the morning in a downtown co-working space, logged into a burner email account I'd created the night before. Subject line, urgent, potential bylaws violation, confidential. I addressed it to 3 members of Virion's board I remembered meeting back in 2014 during a restructuring. I was careful, no accusations, just bullet points. Skylar's hiring timeline, Monica's manifesto excerpts, and the internal Slack activity patterns that suggested premeditated age-based cuts. I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. An hour later, I received a read receipt from one of the board members. That was the first thread. The second thread, the DEI consultant. Virion had hired her 2 years ago as a diversity optics move during the post-pandemic social push. Her name was Jenna Park, a Stanford grad with a chip on her shoulder and a reputation for not backing down. I knew she still had admin-level access to company channels, so I sent her the full culture doc, anonymously, again, with a note that read, "If this is the culture you're being paid to uphold, you might want to ask yourself why." That one hit harder. 2 days later, Tanya from the Slack group messaged me. Rumor is Jenna's requesting a formal audit. Something's rattled her. Good. Let them squirm. Meanwhile, I started talking, strategically. I reached out to a handful of former engineers I knew had been demoralized, but hadn't yet left. I didn't rant. I didn't even bring up Monica. I just asked questions. How's morale lately? Ever thought about a change? I know someone over at Technovox. They're hiring. By the end of the week, 4 senior engineers had quiet conversations with recruiters I'd teed up. Nothing formal yet, but the message was clear. Your best talent is mobile. And I was still connected enough to move them. And then came the post. I stared at the blank Create a Post field on LinkedIn for 15 minutes. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I knew exactly how much to say, and no more. After 30 years with Virion Solutions, I was told I no longer fit the company culture. I wish them well, and I'm looking forward to building something that values integrity over image. That was it. No names, no finger pointing. Just a quiet mirror held up to anyone who knew how to read between the lines. By morning, it had 2,000 reactions. By lunch, 12,000. Comments rolled in like waves. Same thing happened to me last year. You're not alone. Thank you for speaking up without bitterness. That takes real class. Looking forward to seeing where you go next. Then came the messages. A VP at an old vendor partner. Let me know if you're open to consulting work. An editor at a mid-tier tech outlet. Would love to interview you on post-pandemic leadership shifts. Even a few internal Virion employees liked the post. Quietly, without commenting. But someone screenshotted those likes. Because 3 days later, I heard through Tanya that HR was sniffing around again. This time, internally. Monica had reportedly tightened Slack access, restricted certain channels, and asked Skylar to ramp up positivity initiatives, whatever that meant. Desperation never looks good on polished people. Monica sent out a company-wide message titled, "Refocusing Our Energy." It was one of those digital word salads, talk of alignment, recentering, forward vision, and yes, culture cultivation. It stank of panic. Meanwhile, my inbox kept pinging. Former clients reached out, some to offer encouragement, others to hint, politely, that they'd been less than thrilled with Virion's new direction. One, a multi-million-dollar manufacturing account I'd personally saved from churn 5 years ago, wrote, "If you land somewhere new, we'd be interested in continuing the relationship through the right channel." Translation: we trusted you, not them. I didn't reply right away. Timing mattered now. I checked Virion's LinkedIn page. Their latest post, an awkward photo of Monica and Skylar holding branded smoothies, had comments disabled. The one before that had several critical replies about respecting experience and PR gimmicks. I recognized some of the names. I didn't burn any bridges. I just stopped shoring them up. When people realized the foundation was rotted, it collapsed on its own. And I was already building something better. Quietly, methodically, with people who didn't need a TikTok to prove their worth. Let Monica manage the fallout. I was just getting started. 5 days after I left Virion, I got the email. The subject line just said, "You're not going to believe this." It was from Ethan, a friend still inside, or at least close enough to the inside to smell the rot. He'd always been sharp, quiet, like me, but observant. We used to share lunches in the server room when the cafeteria was overrun with influencers and interns pretending to brainstorm. His message was short, clipped, the kind you write when you're both amused and appalled. Monica's in hot water. Board pulled her into a closed-door meeting. Something about improper hiring procedures and age bias complaints. Oh, and Skylar just went viral, but not in a good way. You might want to see this. He'd linked the video. I didn't want to click it, but I did. Skylar was back in the break room, ring light glowing, energy drink in hand. The caption on the live stream read, "When the boomers finally leave and you can vibe in peace." And then she said it. Loud, clear, smirking. Honestly, it's way less cringe around here without the dinosaurs. Now we can finally, innovate without being slowed down by ancient vibes. She giggled, did a spin. The camera caught her reflection in the microwave door. Behind her, you could see one of the newer hires watching, frozen mid-sip. The clip was only 30 seconds, but it was enough. Someone inside screen recorded it. And by that afternoon, it had made the rounds on Reddit, TikTok, and eventually LinkedIn. There, it hit differently. Less humor, more outrage. The caption people used when sharing it? This is what replaced 30 years of loyalty? I didn't comment. I didn't have to. The wave was moving on its own now. People were angry, not just for me, but for what it symbolized. The mockery of experience, the cult of vibes, the worship of flashover substance. I just watched. And then, 2 days later, I stepped onto the floor of the West Coast Tech Summit. I hadn't planned to attend, but then I got the call from Diane Hartley, COO of Vervix, a rival firm I'd always respected from afar. "We've followed your career for years," she said. "We're expanding. We'd like you to lead the strategy arm." The offer was solid, the team sharp, the mission aligned. I said yes. The conference was buzzing, but not about panels or product launches. Word had spread about the Virion leak, as people were calling it. Rumors of HR investigations, legal compliance issues. One booth that used to belong to Virion was now dark, empty, banner gone. Whispers said a major vendor had just pulled their contract hours before. The irony? It was a vendor I'd personally onboarded a decade ago. I hadn't spoken to them directly, but the timing said enough. At 2 p.m., in the main ballroom, the lights dimmed for the announcement of new executive hires across the industry. Most names were met with polite applause. Then, "Please welcome Jack Foster, newly appointed Director of Strategic Development at Vervix Global." For a moment, it was quiet. Then the applause began. It wasn't thunderous, but it was steady, purposeful, and from where I stood, it felt louder than anything I'd heard in years. I scanned the crowd, faces I hadn't seen since their restructuring at Virion. Darren, Tanya, even Linda from HR, sitting in the back row, nodding once, subtle, but proud. After the session, I shook hands, took a few interviews, gave a quote about valuing wisdom and building durable teams. It wasn't shade, it was truth. A journalist asked if I had any comment on the situation at Virion. I smiled. No comment, but I do believe culture isn't what you write in a doc, it's what survives you. She wrote it down, word for word. Later, as I stood by the exit escalators watching people drift off to cocktail hours and networking dinners, someone tapped me on the shoulder. It was Raj, an old systems architect I hadn't seen in a decade. He looked older, like we all did, but content. "You know," he said, "when I saw that post of yours last week, I printed it out and pinned it to my wall." "Why?" "Because it reminded me we're not obsolete, we're just out of the way. For now." We stood there in silence for a few beats. Then he added, "You didn't have to burn it down. They lit the match themselves." I nodded. I just let the wind do the rest. As I walked out into the cool afternoon air, I checked my phone. New messages. One from Ethan again. "Monica's on leave. Internal review launched. PR's in overdrive. Skylar's contract quietly terminated. Thought you'd want to know." I slid the phone back into my pocket. Justice doesn't always look like a courtroom or a news story. Sometimes it looks like silence, like a retracted booth at a conference, like a vanished contract, like the echo of applause when your name is called, and theirs never is. What they built was always shaky. They just didn't think it would rain. But rain always comes. The door to my new office still sticks a little when you open it, a minor flaw in an otherwise perfect space. It's a corner room, plenty of light, high shelves I haven't filled yet. On the frosted glass outside, my name is etched in clean, confident lettering. Jack Foster, Director of Strategic Development. I didn't ask for the title to be printed that way. Someone just did it, assuming it mattered. And maybe it does. Not because of the ego behind it, but because of what it means. Here, at Vervix, they don't make you prove your worth with hashtags and performance theater. You show up. You do the work. And that's enough. In my first month, we've already launched 2 of the projects I pitched in my interview. No endless vibe checks, no decks full of meaningless buzzwords. Just solutions, timelines, and teams that trust each other. It's strange, really, how quiet competence can feel so unfamiliar after years of surviving noise. My office is quiet most of the day. I keep the blinds half drawn and a small pot of coffee on a warmer in the corner. Sometimes I catch myself watching the hallway, expecting to see Skylar filming another chaotic video or Monica breezing in late with a fresh justification for why half the company should pivot to brand storytelling. But no one here does that. No one's here to posture. They're here to work. The break room isn't a stage. It's a place to eat lunch. There's no ring light, no smoothie station, just a pot of decent coffee, some leftover birthday cake from someone's kid, and people talking softly about deliverables and timelines. It's nice, peaceful. A week ago, I passed Diane, our COO, in the hallway. She paused, nodded at the framed whiteboard I'd hung beside my door. "Is that yours?" she asked. I looked up at the quote, handwritten in permanent marker. "Culture is what survives you." She smiled. "We're lucky you decided to bring yours here." I just nodded. I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't need to. Back at Virion, the fallout continued. Word drifted through my network. Monica was still on leave, but the board had quietly removed her from Slack and company emails. Skylar's contract had been terminated by mutual agreement. The spin was clumsy. No one really bought it. A few vendors had walked. A couple former engineers had found new homes, some here with me. And the press. They'd moved on. That viral clip had burned hot, fast, and then vanished under the next scandal of the week. I didn't follow the updates anymore. I didn't need to see the ending. I'd already lived my version of it. Now, I take the train home. No more company cars. No endless commutes in traffic. No late-night emergency calls about brand crises that weren't really crises. Just a short walk to the station, a warm seat, and the slow, rhythmic hum of tracks beneath me. Tonight, the sun is setting low. The window beside me glows orange. I watch my own reflection as the world slides past. For a long moment, I don't think about Monica, or Skylar, or the years I gave to a place that forgot how to value them. I think about how it feels to be still, not victorious, not smug, just still. I didn't torch anything. I didn't swing a hammer. I just stepped back and let gravity do the work. What they built couldn't stand on its own, because it was never built on anything real. Just trends, image, and insecurity, disguised as innovation. But I learned something through all of it. Something I didn't expect. Revenge doesn't always announce itself. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it's the silence that follows your name being said in a room full of decision-makers. The pause that happens when someone realizes they made the wrong bet. The empty chair at a conference table that once belonged to a distraction, now replaced by someone who knows what the hell they're doing. That's what happened here. No fireworks, no headlines, just space being cleared for something better. And now, after 30 years, I finally have something I never knew I was missing. A place where the work matters more than the noise. A place where I don't have to shrink or mold myself into a caricature of relevance. A place where being steady, reliable, and wise isn't a liability. It's the culture. I glance down at my bag, where a file folder sits labeled New Hire Onboarding, Strategy Team. 3 resumes inside, all from people over 40, all brilliant, all overlooked. Not anymore. The train slows near my stop. The sun flares across the glass, obscuring my reflection for a moment. When it fades, I'm still there. Still me. Not broken. Not bitter. Just free. Turns out I fit just fine. They just didn't know what culture really meant.